I've been going back and forth on this for a while now. I'll share it with you today. I recently reviewed a story I had written quickly in one day by harnessing a concentrated explosion of inspiration. With a revision, it clocked in around 2,200 words. I wrote it to meet an external deadline for a short story contest, and in the immediate afterglow of writing it, I really liked what I had. I was happy to have sent it out to the contest for consideration. A few days later, I read it again. I saw some shortcomings, stopped short of calling them flaws, and considered how I would handle them in a rewrite. I was ultimately still pleased with the work, but now with more trepidation, more anxiety about returning to draft it again, probably because the level of effort in my mind had just grown. I could see how tall of a mountain I would need to scale in order to get it right. My most recent rereading, and to be clear, I have changed nothing about the story yet, frightened me. I was so critical about the quality of the work that I called into question whether I should return to it at all. My current opinion reminds me of fruit and veggies decaying in the fridge. Every time I look back on this story, it looks more rotten and less consumable. It's not that there's nothing of merit in the piece. Some of the language is quite good, and some of the story elements are compelling. But it's so far off from my initial glow of optimism that I'm second-guessing my ability to identify quality, not just in my own work, but by anyone's standards. It might be the mounting rejections I'm collecting through Submittable. See, I did my multiple revisions on a different story, this one around 918 words, followed the process and got it over my personal finish line. I was proud of it and started sending it out, and the world seems motivated to send it right back to me. The volume and pace of the rejections are fueling my newfound lack of confidence. I'm consciously trying not to build up any one rejection as the final straw. I don't want one rejection to reflect the universal opinion of all tastemakers, or to act as the death knell of my dream to restart my fiction career. But I'll be honest with you, it has been all too easy to fall down that slip and slide of despair. I've had good success since beginning this podcast in publishing nonfiction articles. Writing about writing is easy for me, and I have been focused on the process and teaching others the process for decades. Part of this must stem from me as a younger man in college, feeling powerful and poised for greatness. I recall trying to mentor my peers, even as I was still stumbling in the dark to uncover my own process. Thinking back, I assume this was arrogance and insecurity mixed with just enough talent to be dangerous. Today, I am well equipped to mentor, as adult learning has been my profession for over 2 decades. My arrogance has evaporated, leaving in its place a sense of perspective and perhaps even wisdom. I enjoy writing these refill episodes. I enjoy prepping for my discussions with Tim, and I hope that you find value in them. As a result, I've published 6 or more articles over the last year, but all of them non-fiction. And so, friends, that brings me to my secret regret and my path forward. I've started pondering why I want to write at all. Where the non-fiction flows freely, like a valve I need merely twist open, the fiction comes slowly and painfully. I don't enjoy writing fiction as much as non-fiction. The secret I want to share with you today is one of style. Let me explain. When I started this journey over 25 years ago, I wanted to stretch myself creatively and make something new. Minimalist fiction and magical realism were in vogue when I was coming up, so I went backward to study what had come before. I read postmodernism works from the 60s and 70s. I immersed myself in theater of the absurd from the 1950s. And out of that fodder, I was able to emerge with an offbeat voice that secured multiple publications in the 90s. When I hung up my cleats to start a family and a career, I was satisfied that I had developed a signature voice worth using. Now that I've picked up my pen again to write, I find myself hiding within the bounds of realism. That voice from my youth has been supplanted by a more cautious one, concerned less about pushing boundaries and more about coloring within the lines. I worry that what I'm writing now, even though it is more competent and more emotionally authentic than what I wrote in my youth, is somehow too safe, too dull, too irrelevant. When I go back and read my arcane work from college, it is not like rotting fruit, but more like fragments of glass, sharp and broken. My old work was crackling with potential. There was risk on the page. My goal now is to merge my new skills with the old literary edge of playing with form, pushing boundaries, and making it new. I hope this will stoke the old fire and fuel my resolve to do the work. I'll leave you with this. As I have just demonstrated, it can be worthwhile to journal about your flaws, whether real or imagined. This is one of the many obstacles we face on our journey to create art. My advice? Don't give in to the doubt or the self-loathing. Don't amplify the relentless critique from within or outside yourself. Course correction is a good thing. Give yourself permission to refocus on why you want to do this work, and treat that as your North Star until your next introspection. See you next week. Start writing.